Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome. That, as they say, is that. Marvel Comics. Let's go ahead and get started. It is Tuesday, all you mentees, and back by popular demand are the weekly Marvel Advance overviews of the collected editions coming out this particular week. This week we are looking at books coming out October 7th or 8th from Marvel Comics. So let's go ahead and do this. Before going any further, a big thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these books. All these books are due out on October 7th or 8th, depending on where you get your books. Before I go any further, please don't forget to hit that like button. It goes a long way for us here on the channel. Small thing you can do, but it does mean the world to us. We've got 2 new ongoing series, and let me tell you, this week, every week I do a pick of the week, or my seal of approval, and it was really difficult for this week because every one of these books is so good. I really enjoyed them, especially with the whole horror theme going on down here. It is October after all, so it was really hard to decide which one, but if I'm limited to one to pick, I have to do it. All right, let's actually go ahead. As always, I do put timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around in case you're just wondering about 1 or 2 books. Okay, now let's go ahead and start with, let's do the Vader book first. Star Wars Legacy of Vader, The Reign of Kylo Ren. And this is not an adaptation of any of the movies. It is the new era of Star Wars, as Jason Aaron started the new era of Star Wars after A New Hope, and then later on they did stories in between Empire and Return of the Jedi. This, although I don't see it back here, usually they tell you the stories in here are taking place after or before certain movies. This doesn't really kick it off that way. By the way, I've heard so many of my viewers and my friends that don't really collect comics talk about this series and talk about how great it is. So I've been wanting to read it for a while now, and this is collecting the Free Comic Book Day 2025, Star Wars #1, as well as the Star Wars Legacy of Vader 1 through 6. The book has 152 pages and retails for $19.99. And the material from the Free Comic Book Day is just focusing on Kylo Ren, but one other particular character that we'll talk about here in a second. By the way, I'll just go ahead and tell you, this takes place after Episode 8, so after The Last Jedi. So that's Force Awakens, and then you have The Last Jedi, and then this takes place. So it is before the last movie, which is The Rise of Skywalker. But this is the Free Comic Book Day special, and over here they do tell you a little bit about who Kylo Ren is, in case you haven't seen the movies. He is the son of Han Solo and Leia, and his name was Ben Solo, and then he got corrupt by the dark side, just like his grandfather, even though there's no Sith Lord during this time, or is there? The story here is narrated by Vinny, and Vinny is the assistant to Darth Vader when Darth Vader was in Mustafar. And then eventually he waited around on Vader, and when he heard rumors of his fall, he refused to believe that his master was destroyed, and in order to upkeep the tower, that big empire that he had built, that big castle, he actually starts replacing his body parts with electronical body parts, and eventually just kind of becoming a machine with just a head. Now, this is when he finds out, or at least he lets go of Vader, the idea that Vader was going to come back. But there is another. I love that it's a throwback line. By the way, I forgot to give credit where credit is due. It is written by Charles Soule, who's no stranger to the universe of Star Wars. Has written some of the best Star Wars comics, I think. And then Luke Ross, Stefano Raphael are the artists. The colors is Nolan Woodard. And then lettering by Joe Catamagna and Clayton Cowles. So in here, again, taking place after The Last Jedi, we do see the remains of what is left of this army after Emperor Snoke had been destroyed. So now after the demise of Supreme Leader, that's what he went by, not Emperor, Supreme Leader Snoke, Kylo Ren is now calling himself Supreme Leader. He chucks away the body of Snoke, and he kind of has to deal with General Hux a little bit. And this is actually it's kind of like a journey of self-discovery, and I know that sounds stereotypical when it comes to Star Wars comics, but it really does work, because what he does is he wants to destroy the past. He thinks that the past is weakening him. He's not like his grandfather. His grandfather was so stern. I love the fact that he just keeps talking to his grandfather's mask, and he kind of loses it a little bit. So what he decides to do is he decides to go back to that hidden fortress, that place in Mustafar, and that's where he ends up running into Vani. And Vani kind of wants to help him. He comes with the idea that he wants to destroy everything from Darth Vader's past in order to move forward. And Vani's like, well, why don't you just absorb the past like your grandfather did? He was able to take all that pain and use it as a force. And he kind of talks Kylo Ren into letting him live and show him, like, the past of Darth Vader and places that he has gone. So the very first place is Tatooine, where he finds out, you know, this is where he was sold as a slave, and there was another slave before, he had another owner before Watto had bought him, so because he wants to avenge him. And what he wants to do is go to the actual slave owner, and that is Gardula the Hutt. And she's still around, so he picks a fight with them. And this is what this is. This will become a journey of self-discovery and finding out who Kylo Ren is supposed to be, as opposed to Vader. Now, if you've seen the last movie, The Rise of the Skywalker, I think that's what it's called, Rise of Skywalker, you know where the story ends, but this really dives deep into his psyche of what someone like him could be. And going into all these special or unique places that Vader's life had touched before he became Vader, when he was just Anakin Skywalker, I think really adds to that idea that perhaps you can't be who you're supposed to be unless you let go of the past. So initially he wanted to destroy everything from Vader's past, and now he kind of wants to hold it and use it as a force to be reckoned with. I think it's a really cool idea that works, and if you're a fan of the Star Wars movies, especially the prequels, there is some stuff like from the original, right? From episodes 4, 5, and 6. But there is a lot of prequel stuff, more so than sequel stuff. I mean, other than General Hux and Kylo Ren, I really thought there would be more present-day stuff here. But it focuses more on the past and his connections to his grandfather. Now, all the way in the back, by the way, the series continues. It does not end. There's a little bit of Vani right here, a little bio on him, and then you'll have variant covers. And yeah, I can see why people were hyping this up. The art is really stellar. It looks like the actors from the movie. And the story is really, it's conflicting. It's like, okay, I'm not the biggest fan of the sequel trilogy, nor am I the biggest fan of the prequel trilogy. But a story like this makes me want to be a better fan and go back and rewatch some of those movies. And I guess it did its job. 152 pages, $19.99. Eddie Brock Carnage, Volume 1, Killing Me. Before I even open this up, I'm just going to go ahead and say spoilers, even though the title says Eddie Brock Carnage. I don't want to give anything away in what happened previously. Even if you put me on mute, well, no, if you put me on mute, you can look at the pretty pictures. This does have some pretty violent pictures. Yes, that is something to note. It is T+, but man, they do a lot of things in here that are kind of almost crossing that line. Charles Soule, again, writing the stories in here. And you have Jesus Saiz, Juanan Ramirez doing the art, and colors by Matt Hollingsworth, primarily. Joe Sabino doing the lettering. And just again, one more again, spoilers. All right, what happened previously? This does recap what happened previously and how Eddie Brock and Carnage came together. Eddie Brock has been Venom. He's been anti-Venom. He's been maybe the King in Black. He's been part of Meridian. He's been Bedlam. And now he is Carnage. At the end of the whole storyline with the Venom War between Eddie and his son and other symbiotes, Eddie was almost dead. And so was the symbiote Carnage. And they decided to help each other by merging. Now, Cletus Cassidy, a serial killer, had previously been the host of Cletus Cassidy. Now it is Eddie. This actually works so different than any other Carnage story I've read. Because this is Eddie, who has control. He's come a long way from, we want to eat your brains, to, okay, let's be lethal protectors, Venom. But now he's dealing with a symbiote that is a serial killer that has very, very little control. And he himself finds little control of Carnage. So what they do is they form a pact. He tells him that, okay, I will help you kill because you need it. You need to feed on death. And in order to do that, I will justify it by going after serial killers. And that's what this is. So at the very first issue, Eddie is talking to the symbiote Carnage, and you can see that they both agreed that they're here on this plane looking for a serial killer. And this serial killer has killed in many different places. They go by the name of Hopscotch, and one thing that the symbiote does, the Carnage symbiote does, is go into people's heads and takes their memories. So one by one, he starts seeing that, wait, these aren't killers. Who is the killer? The entire plane is taken over by Carnage. And Eddie's like, okay, oh my gosh, there's only one person left. And that is the pilot. So the pilot, as it turns out, is the serial killer. And how does Carnage deal with this? Of course, there's a pilot and a co-pilot. We also meet this federal agent right here. And she is related to Misty Knight, who will become a big part of the story later on. But Carnage decides to take over. And man, like I said, I'm surprised this is not rated with that parental advisory, because there's all kinds of death. So much so that the co-pilot gets ripped apart by Carnage. That is so freaking awesome. See what I meant when I said this and a little bit of that Vader book was more towards the horror genre. I'm loving it. So, of course, Eddie, being the good guy that he is, realizes, okay, the plane's going down. We gotta save people. And that's what him and the Carnage symbiote decide to do. They save everybody by putting them in a ball. However, Eddie blacks out. And he wakes up and doesn't realize that he has missed some time. And what happened? What happened to all those people that he saved? Did the Carnage symbiote eat them? Did he kill them? We do get a new player here, Bailey, who's kind of like his friend. And then he has conversations with the symbiote. And it's in the below. So it's either internally or maybe it's a physical place. Regardless, this is how Carnage looks ridiculous. And they talk about their pact and how little control Eddie has, but they need each other to survive. So he makes a pact with him. At the end of the first issue, he says, okay, you need to feed, but please tell me all those people are alive. And he was like, how about this? We go after some heavy hitters. I'm tired of killing people that are serial killers, like Hopscotch serial killer. Let's go after someone with superpowers. That way I can eat good. And that's what Eddie does. So in the second issue, they do go after somebody that is just impersonating a police officer, and it turns out to be none other than Bushwhacker. And I really don't want to say anything else about this. I did say Misty Knight does play a role in this, and the role that she plays is that she is going after Eddie Brock, because she knows that Eddie Brock is still out there and he could be a danger to society, a danger to himself, and of course, a danger to all the superheroes that are out there. This book has a total of 120 pages and does have, or collects, the first 5 issues of this series. $17.99, and man, this one took me by surprise. My buddy Batmantha, who I had on last Wednesday, told me that this book really surprised her. She compared it to Dexter, and that's what this is. This does feel like you have a serial killer symbiote, and you got to put it to good use. So why not go after superhero or supervillain serial killers. So that's what they do. Whether they're successful or not, you can find out. Whether those people on the plane are still alive or not, you can find out for yourself. And what role does Misty Knight have to do in this book whenever she finds Eddie Brock? So let's look at the extras, because we do have a few in the back. Right here. Some in thumbnail and some in splash page. And that is Eddie Brock Carnage Volume 1, Killing Me. Predator, the Theta Saga. This is the stuff that is written by Ed Brisson and has been previously collected in a series of 3 different trade paperbacks. You have Predator here, The Day of the Hunter, and The Preserve, and then Predator, The Last Hunt. So these 3 books make this up. This doesn't have the Predator Destroys the Marvel Universe, or Predator versus Wolverine, or Spider-Man. This is a book, by the way, it is not an epic collection, it's not a complete or ultimate collection, but it is a thickie. It's almost as thick as an epic collection. And thicker than some of the modern era epic collections. So this does collect Predator 2022 1 through 6, Predator from 2023 1 through 5, and then Predator The Last Hunt 1 through 4. The book has 376 pages and retails for $44.99. A little bit of the timeline here about some of the Predators that have previously appeared on Earth. And then this is the breakdown of the credits. So you have Kev Walker doing the original 6 issues, Francesco Mana doing The Last Hunt, and then you have Belardino Bravo and Netho Diaz and Eder Macias also helping out with these books. So they are broken down into 3 different series, as I've shared earlier. Covers are primarily done by Lionel Francis Yu. It is called the Theta Saga instead of the Ed Brisson collection because it is focusing on the character of Theta Berwick. So we start in the year 2056, as opposed to like where we've been before, 1987, 97, 2010, 2018, and now 2056. So this is present day for the Predator universe. So we see 2 Predators going at it. One revealing his face, taking his mask off, and then this one just chopping his head off and yelling, "Damn it!" Then we do a flashback to 2041, where we do meet the character of Theta Nedra Berwick, and we get to meet her parents. And her parents are unfortunately, again, spoilers by the way, because I have to talk about the first issue and kind of like the setup for the rest of the series. Her parents are about to get killed. So her dad, Hugo, ends up getting shot by this very familiar laser right there. And that is, of course, from the Predator. And then we jump into modern day where she is revealed to be underneath the mask and hunting predators until she finds the one that killed her father. But not just her father, as you see later on, because she is going back to the ship right here, and everyone is getting slaughtered one by one. And then eventually, her mother seals the door where she is kept behind, and she is going to go and face off the Predator. And you find out that she isn't really alone, that she is talking to Sandy, and Sandy is kind of like the spaceship's AI. And it talks back to her. It protects her because it made a deal with her mother. Oh, what's her mother's name? Francesca, I think. But yes, Francesca does end up dying in front of her. And Francesca, before she dies, tells Stacy, the ship, to take off with Theta and protect her. So this guy, this Predator that got his little mandible chopped off by Theta is who she is going to be after. That's what the first story is about. That's what the first issues are about. She is here hunting the predators, and every time that she kills a predator, she realizes it's not the one who's missing that little mandible. I'm gonna find that bastard and kill him. By the way, this one, I do want to state, has parental advisory. A lot of it due to the violence, and a lot of it due to the language. So I love the fact that we do have some strong language in Marvel Comics. She does end up finding some humans, and she does stick with just one of them. And his name is Paolo. Now I want to talk about the second series, because the second series is a little bit different. And I love it. This is the Preserve. So the Preserve starts off with a bunch of humans with guns being hunted by, you guessed it, predators. And they don't know how they got there. This is a planet that is far, far away from Earth, and these 8 strangers just find themselves being hunted down by predators. They talk to each other, they talk about what they do for a living, some of them have military training, and then they realize that they're just there for some kind of game. They're given weapons, so they have a chance of survival. And it's not just the predators that they have to fight off, it's also the creatures that live on this planet. Now, when the predator does, one of them, come after them, that one gets his head shot off, and it turns out that Theta is there, and she's pretty much giving that Arnold line from Terminator 2, or the Kyle Reese line from Terminator 1, "Come with me if you want to live." That line, that's what she does. She is still hunting predators because she has decided that all predators must die and no one is safe from her. There are some changes that happen to her here, like she ends up getting a metallic arm, and you can find out why exactly later on. And then we'll move on to the 3rd series, where we now are introduced to a newer predator. This is a super predator who is on the loose. And this is really cool. Really freaking cool if you're a fan of like the Dark Horse Comics era or even just the movies. So in this one, it's her and Paulo, and they're out there hunting predators. And what they end up finding is that there is a bunch of captives, human captives at that the predators have kept for their game preserve. So they find that coordinates and they go and try to free them. And they start coming out. And one of the very first ones that comes out is John Schaefer. John is the brother of Dutch, who, of course, was our lead character in the Predator movie, played by none other than Arnold. But he's not alone. There's a bunch of other humans here, but can all the humans with Theta and Paulo and Sandy go up against this super predator? And can they trust each other long enough to do it? Man, this was a blast. I've really enjoyed the series. Let's look in the back here for some extras, as you have variant covers, some in thumbnail size and some in full splash page. If you've missed out on the trade paperbacks, this is a great collection, much like the Alien collection that Marvel put out earlier. I wish it was in hardcover, but maybe when it's all said and done, a bunch of the modern Predator stuff will be collected in an omnibus format. But that is Predator, the Theta Saga. All right. Looking at all of the spines of the books coming out this particular week. And I still love the fact that the modern era Epic collections have a different logo than the Epic collections, the classic stuff. All right, let's continue with these overviews. Captain America, Modern Era Epic Collection, Volume 3, The Burden of Dreams, continuing the Ed Brubaker saga. And spoilers, before I even open it up, because, well, something big that happened in the previous book. So, over here are the credits. Ed Brubaker, Steve Epting, Luke Ross, Butch Guice are the main artists. Frank DeMarta doing the colors. You also have Roberto De La Torre and Mike Perkins doing some of the art. And this gives you a little bit of a recap of what happened previously. So collected in here is Captain America 31 through 48, the 2004 series, and issue 34, the director's cut. 480 pages, $54.99. So yes, previously Captain America, after the end of Civil War, got killed. And it's all explained how exactly and why it happened. Now, his successor will be this guy right here. So a lot of people were speculating when that happened that it would be Falcon, that it would be Sharon. Nope. It is Bucky Barnes, who was the Winter Soldier. So the stories in here really focus on him becoming Captain America and trying to fill in that, I guess the cowl, the shield, and trying to become worthy of being Captain America, while the people that were in charge of killing Captain America are still out there. And he does make a pact. This is a really powerful story about learning to forgive yourself for the sins of the past, because he had done a lot of atrocities under, of course, when he was manipulated and brainwashed. But Dr. Faustus tries to break Bucky in this particular story and try to return him back to the role of the Winter Soldier. And he does end up escaping, of course. He ends up escaping with a little help from none other than Agent 13. And that is, of course, Sharon Carter. Ends up going back into S.H.I.E.L.D. custody and seeing Black Widow. Now, him and Black Widow during this run actually do have like a start of a relationship. There is a huge fight between him and Iron Man because he still feels like Iron Man is partially responsible for what happened to Steve because of the whole Civil War thing. I'm skipping a little bit through here, just kind of giving you an idea of what the artwork looks like. But again, it was Ed Brubaker putting himself in a corner, like getting rid of your main character, Steve Rogers, and then having this psychopath, who we thought were a psychopath right here, step in and trying to fill in Captain America's shoes. It didn't roll over really well at first, and he's trying to do the right thing. I do love his Alex Ross costume. It did grow on me. At first I was like, I don't know about Captain America's outfit. It looks kind of ridiculous, and he's holding a gun. What is this? But then it kind of grew on me. And the more he would use it, I kind of missed that type of outfit. We do have plenty of flashbacks here between him and Bucky. We have perhaps the return of Steve Rogers coming back as Captain America and wanting that role back. But is it really Steve Rogers? Something awful happens to Sharon Carter throughout this particular volume right here. Because you find out something towards the end of the previous volume. It's a little bit of a shocker to a lot of us that were reading this, and what ends up happening here is just as much of a shocker to people that were reading the books. And I know I'm kind of beating around the bush, but I don't want to tell people what exactly happened to her. All I know, it was awful. The Red Skull and Sin and characters like Crossbones do play a big part in this. They're still the villains. You're going to see part of the Serpent Society. You're going to see characters like Batroc in here, Arnim Sola. And then, of course, a lot of team-ups between the new Captain America and Black Widow. And starting, like I mentioned, that whole relationship. So this new Captain America, Bucky, has sworn that there's no way in hell that he is going to let Sharon Carter be tortured. And that's what he sets out to do. He sets out to free her because she ended up helping him, and he needs to repay the favor. But also because it's the right thing to do. That was Captain America's friend, Steve Rogers' friend. Towards the last arc in here, there is a reunion of the Invaders in here. So you'll see Namor, you'll see the Human Torch. And why exactly is there a reunion? By the way, Frank D'Amarta doesn't get enough credit for making this just seem flawless. Absolutely flawless. Let's go back here just to see the artwork by Butch Guice, by Luke Ross, by Steve Epting. It really does seem like it's one guy. I mean, you got to pay attention, and you know who's who if you've been reading comics for a while and can tell the different artists. But really, to the naked eye, man, it's hard to tell with the colors just making it flow so well from one artist to the other. And then, of course, in the back, we do have the extras. One of the extras that I mentioned was that Captain America 34 director's cut, which we'll look at here in a second. And there's variant covers, including the design cover there. They didn't do a lot of variants. I think, like, the more closer we get to the modern times, well, these books are going to be thicker. Because back then, they didn't do a lot of variants. There's Sin and Crossbones. Oh, these are the articles about Ed Brubaker from the behind the scenes. The spotlight on them. And then the spotlight on Steve Epting, too. And who shot Captain America and why? This is the director's cut right here of Captain America, giving you the script. And then, of course, the designs right here. Glad they didn't go with that one. I'm glad he kind of brought it back down a little bit. Yeah, this is, I remember seeing the designs like this right here, and I was like, I don't know if that's going to work. He's not Captain America, but then again, we need a different Captain America. It needs to be different than Steve Rogers. Ed Brubaker and Mike Perkins doing that little bit of extra right there, and then the handbook giving you a whole bio on Steve Rogers and what happened to him, and a little bio on the Winter Soldier. And an ad for other modern era epic collections, including Spider-Gwen. So again, the book collects issues 31 through 48. And I know the next one is going to be mapped a little bit different than the Omnibus, let me clarify, because we've had Volume 2 mapped a little bit different than the Omnibus, because this one here actually collects the Fallen Sun miniseries. This has already been collected in Omnibus format. But later on, you know, Ed Brubaker doesn't write everything, so the mapping in these Epic collections are going to be different. You're going to see other miniseries, other collections, other one-shots that were not previously collected in Omnibus format. That's just for people that like to read everything and be a completist. Much like the DC compendiums, they're sometimes in different reading orders too than Omnis. So now it's like, oh, I really got to start deciding. But that's Captain America Modern Era Epic Collection, The Burden of Dreams. Annihilation Modern Era Epic Collection, Volume 2. This is Desperate Measures. And much like the Amazing Spider-Man Modern Era Epic Collection of last week, the logo is a little smaller for Annihilation. I'm assuming this will be, going forward, what the logo will look like, just a little bit smaller. There you go. Gives you an idea of how it will look on your shelf. All right. Process of elimination. Hell yes. Seal of approval. It was hard. I love all those books. Those were all good. This is one of my favorite events of all time. And this is when the event starts kicking. This is when the event actually is collected. Collecting in here is Annihilation Ronan by none other than Simon Furman. So let's go back to the credits page. Simon Furman of Transformers fame, but he has written comics too, right? Like Death's Head and Marvel UK Comics. Jorge Lucas doing the artwork for that miniseries. The Annihilation main event, like Annihilation issues 1 through 6, Keith Giffen writing the stories with art by Andre DeVito. And then you have the Herald of Galactus 2-issue miniseries. That's written by different writers like Christos Gage and Stuart Moore with Keith Giffen, Scott Collins, Giuseppe Camuncoli, Mike McCone, just to name a few. And then you have the Annihilation Nova Corps files. The book has a total of 408 pages and retails for $49.99. If you've never read this, oh my gosh, you're in for a treat. And first of all, how did you not pick up the omnibus? It's been printed 4 times. But good on you for holding strong and wanting your trade paperback editions. It is mapped very similar to the omnibus outside of the ongoing Nova series collected. They just have the Nova series that leads into this, and then the Nova 4 issues that are big parts of the Annihilation Conquest. So, Ronan, we have this Kree that is on the run from the Empire because he was accused and sentenced. He was found guilty of treason. And one of the key players, a key witness, was Tana Nile. And he is looking for her to clear his name. So he ends up finding, in this planet of Gothab Omega, an encampment of a bunch of Krees that have been exiled. Including somebody, if you're a big fan of the Marvel Cosmic stuff, or even things like Operation Galactic Storm, and there's Tana Nile. This guy right here, Korath. So Korath is part of this particular group, or exile group. But it's not the only character that he's going to find. We're going to see Nebula in here, and we're going to see Gamora play an important part in here as well. And these will become the key players, even characters from Excalibur, like Sarai's right there. These will become important characters in the Annihilation storyline. So how does the Annihilation storyline tie into all this? Well, we do have the character of Glorian that is manipulating and recreating this particular world, and just amazing type of art in here. This one really reminds me of that like Euro type of art, because again, it's Jorge Lucas. But Glorian is this character that's trying to reshape the world and using his powers, this guy right here. And what ends up happening is the Annihilation wave comes and just just destroys this planet. A lot of Kree die, a lot of the exile people die in here, and a lot of characters you may be familiar with end up dying here. And all of it leads into the Annihilation. Now, Annihilation, the way that this is written, if you've never read it, oh my gosh, it's written like a war journal. It's written like we are 205 days into the battle. A lot of it coming from the pages of Nova, of course, Richard Rider, who has built an army, the United Front, to oppose the Annihilation Wave. He was the very first person, at least in the miniseries, that was affected by the Annihilation Wave. He saw the entire Nova Corps get just slaughtered. And now it is up to him, along with people like Peter Quill, Ronan the Accuser, who ends up joining him, Drax, and Cammy, because you can't go anywhere without Cammy. I love that little girl, man. If you've read this and you've read the Annihilation Conquest and Guardians of the Galaxy, you can't help but become a Cammy fan. And then later on, she shows up in other stories like the, Avengers, the Underground story, and Arena, and then Cosmic Ghost Rider. I just love that character. I hope they keep using her. It doesn't have to be for cosmic stories, but you'll see a lot of key players through here. Thanos ends up kidnapping Moondragon and telling Drax via Phyla-Vell that she will be killed if Drax ends up coming after him, because of course Thanos has a plan. You'll see Galactus get taken down because he's part of a bigger plan. So Thanos has allied himself with none other than Annihilus to see what Annihilus's plan is going to be and extinguish all of life within the universe. That's what his plan is. But then again, it's Thanos. He's hanging out with Death. He always has a backup plan in case that doesn't work. You'll see relationships start building in here. I think most people are always surprised with the Gamora and Richard Rider relationship through here because, well, the movies Guardians of the Galaxy show her with Star-Lord, but no, it's not like that at all in here. And then you'll see a lot of the other characters appear through here, like the character of Kalurt that appears in here. He, of course, is the Super Skrull. He plays a big part in all of this, as well as Ronan, as well as Nova, and also the Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer is not forgotten. He doesn't appear at first, but they do bring him in here as one of the key players, and he has something like a big role to play later on. So how can this united force stop the Annihilation? How can they stop Annihilus? And what is Thanos' plan exactly? And what about Ravenous? And what about all these other characters that are just teamed up with Annihilus? How are they going to play a big part in all this? Man, this is such a phenomenal modern epic story. I don't know how else to put it. It is a modern epic story. To me, the modern cosmic saga is the best cosmic saga. I absolutely love Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War, Infinity Crusade. Okay, Infinity Gauntlet, I absolutely love. That was a part of my childhood. Those Silver Surfers were a part of my childhood. And going back and reading some of the classic stuff of Captain Marvel and, of course, Adam Warlock, or even early stories of the Guardians of the Galaxy, those are a lot of fun. And the 90s Guardians of the Galaxy were great, but this was special. This led into Conquest. That led into War of the Kings. We had 2 ongoing series, Nova and the Guardians of the Galaxy. And that's what James Gunn saw to base his movie on. And I hope we get more eras like this. Books like this are the reason I love comics. And they're able to surprise me. I know this book is, 20 years ago, maybe, almost? Let's just say 17 years ago. But still, it just, at the time when you think you've read everything, books like this come out and it's like, I can't wait to turn a page. I can't wait to read the next issue. And that, to me, is what comics are about. To this day, I get excited over new comics. Like, Eddie Brock Carnage was a lot of fun. And made me want to turn each page. You know, I thought the older I would get, the more jaded I would become with comics and be like, man, comics are just getting stupid. I've already read the story 100 times. Every one of these stories are just copy and paste stories. Give me the old stuff. But as it turns out, I'm not. I still get excited over goofy things and amazing stories like this. Now, what the hell was I saying? Oh, yes. There's other stories collected in here towards the back. It's the Heralds of Galactus. And what these do is they focus on, yes, you guessed it, the Heralds of Galactus. Whether it's Terrax, whether it's Stardust, whether it's the Silver Surfer and Aegis and characters like that. And then in the very, very back, you get the Nova Corps files. And this kind of catches you up to speed as to who some of these characters are and their current status quos and where they currently are at the beginning of the Annihilation story. I'm glad it's collected in here. It's also, like I said, in the omnibus, Praxagore is one of my favorite characters. She also plays an important part in the Conquest storyline. But this particular book, again, has a total of 408 pages, retailing for $49.99. And then you get character studies in the back here. And a variant cover, which I don't remember seeing that. And an unused page by Scott Collins. And then these combined covers. And Andy Schmidt, the editor at the time of Annihilation. But that's it. That, as they say. What a good week for collected editions. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. In the comments down below, let me know which books you're picking up, which ones you're collecting in Epic format, which ones you already have in omnibus format, which ones you hope they make in an omnibus hardcover format, or, I'm sorry, that's redundant. I mean an oversized edition, because it could be a hardcover, oversized hardcover, deluxe edition. Who knows? You know, Marvel has brought them back from time to time. Any questions, leave them down below. Smash that like button. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.